You never really realize how quickly life can move ahead when you're locked in on one thing. And even when you are locked in on that one thing, good or bad, it you never realize how lonely it can be. That isolation, that loneliness of like just missing the people that you care about so much. When you're sitting there, you're constantly going through the motions, and even if it's something that you love so desperately and that you want to be your future, or you want it to be the thing that defines you, or you feel like it is what God put you on this earth for, that isolation can be so deadly, and you won't even realize it. It'll blind you from the things that gave you hope before. It'll change you fundamentally, and you will never notice. You won't notice until all of a sudden these changes aren't good anymore. These changes aren't just affecting you and, being good for you. They're negatively affecting the people around you. They're things that show up, and all of a sudden everybody around you is asking the same question: what happened to the person I knew? I watched Spider-Man Brand New Day the other day, and I said I wanted to make a couple videos on it, and I do, because I think this movie was terrific. I think it wasn't just a good Spider-Man movie, it was a good drama. It was a movie that helps you look at yourself. It was a movie that I felt like you can relate so well to as a person. You can relate so well to, in the sense that there's so many like things that Peter Parker went through that even if you obviously technically can't go through the same things, there are things that they feel exactly like how everybody else feels, from not having that relationship that you want, from feeling like your job or your passions taking over your life, not being able to separate your personal life from your work life. And I wanted to talk about that, that loneliness that comes from locking in, you want to say, right? That way that when you're sitting there and you're just completely focused on one thing, and all of a sudden you never truly realize that it's just you, right? Spider-Man Brand New Day features Peter Parker going through a new stage in his life after the events of No Way Home, where he asked Doctor Strange to make a spell where everybody would forget who Peter Parker was, and it was the right thing to do. That spell is the only reason that everything was able to work out, right? If it wasn't for that spell, who knows what could have happened to his universe, right? So him doing that was the right idea. It was the best thing to do in that situation. But it was the worst thing for him personally, right? And that's a big thing for Spider-Man. Any Spider-Man fan will tell you like that is the most Spider-Man thing that can happen. Something good for the world but terrible for Peter Parker. But I think when you watch that movie and you see the effects that has on him, it's very relatable, right? It's very relatable. And I wanted to talk about that crushing loneliness, and not just of being a hero, but that crushing loneliness of being you, I feel like everybody can relate to that. You can relate to the fact that, when you're stuck doing the same thing over and over again, whether it's work, whether it's, your athletics, whether it's your academics, whether it's your arts, even the things that bring you so much joy can be things that are, so negative for you. And that really plays into being a hero. I feel like that's like one of the biggest and most like detrimental effects of being a hero in most stories, right? It's that you're just so lonely, you've seen all of these hero stories, even the heroes that have teams, even the heroes that usually are going through like pretty good, the heroes that have families, that have friends, that have found families. They'll have these times where it's just them, where they're on their own fighting the same battle, or when they're at their worst, they just so happen to be on their own, right? And a big part of that is because to be a hero, you have to be able to make the right decisions, whether or not they're the best decisions for you. In Brand New Day, he's constantly making those decisions based solely on everybody else, right? I feel like you can really see it, especially with his relationship with the sorry, with the detective from Brand New Day, Jean DeWolf, right? She even mentions to the fact that, man, whenever they talk, it's never about like anything personal. They don't know anything about each other. It's always about like work. It's always about the next case. And like for a good majority of the movie, he's always like, okay, I can get on this case, or okay, I'll do this, right? You know, he has to ask what her children's names are, even though it seems like every time she's on the phone with him, they're right there, and they're constantly asking about him, right? You can see it in the way how his apartment looks, right? You can see it in his personal home life, right? How his apartment doesn't really seem like an apartment. It's just like a lab, right? It looks like Tony Stark's lab. You know, it looks like when he just sits there, when he would probably like sit down there for days on end just working on the next project, that seems like that's Pete's whole life, right? It's just computers, it's just an AI helping him complete the next mission. You know, it's never about the comfort of Peter Parker. It's always just about what can I do to help Spider-Man in that sense. And it's like crazy when you see it, because then you compare it with his Spider-Man life. You compare it with him getting the key to the city, with him capturing and beating all these villains, with him as Spider-Man seeming the best that he's ever been, right? While with Peter Parker, it's not even just that Peter Parker's living a bad life. It looks like Peter Parker isn't even living a life, period. You know, he has no social life going on, right? Even when people do try to make connections with him, he very clearly keeps everyone at arm's reach. And it makes sense, you know. He's most likely scared of the fact that that it hasn't seemed to work out, right? Yeah, it looks like when he does go through things, even when he does go to help, even when he does go ask for help from, you know, with Bruce Banner, he kind of has to play it like he's not Peter Parker. He has to first fake that he's Ned Leeds. He has to try to kind of beat around the bush with everything. When he goes to Yelena for help, he keeps the mask on because he's going not as Peter Parker, he's going as Spider-Man, right? You know, she even makes mention to it. She's like, oh, I'm so happy that the sad man has friends. And it's, you know, it feels like such a funny line. Like it's like one of those real funny MCU throwaway lines, you know, just for comedy. But it's very true in the sense that, yeah, that's exactly what it is. He's a sad young man. He's a man who's gone through so much and has nobody really there to help him go through it, right? It seems like his biggest like friend in this sense would be like Punisher, and even then it's like they're clearly like at odds with each other for a good chunk of like most of their relationship, right? They work with each other, but only in the sense because they're trying to do the same thing. And it's a really fascinating thing to like go through and look at, you know. It's nice to kind of look at it and then see it from Jean's point of view too. You know, she is used as like a perfect parallel and foil to him in the sense of what he was and what he can be even more if he continues to go down this way. I think Punisher represents more of what he can be if he continued to go down the same way that he was going, you know, someone who doesn't really live a life. You know, there is no Frank Castle, it's just the Punisher, right? You know, in this case, there is no Peter Parker, it's just Spider-Man. And he's a perfect example of that, like, loneliness that comes with being a hero, right? You know, we even see when he does make an attempt to have a life as Peter Parker, goes terribly, right? He goes to MJ and Ned's party, and all he kind of comes from that is crazy emotional turmoil, right? He comes out of it like way worse than he went into it, right? He comes out of it, he hasn't really made much of an impression. He couldn't even tell them his name, and it's crazy because then it kind of leads up to MJ telling him like, I don't even know you, right? And man, I'm gonna make a video on that too. I like one of the best scenes in MCU history. You know, as I said before, it reminds me a lot of the I Bet We Were Fun Gamora and Peter Quill scene, which is funny to think about those parallels with that too. And it's like you can feel the loneliness. You can feel like that sense of like, oh, it's really just me right now, you know. And yeah, and it's just like, and Brand New Day just has such a great way of how they told that story of Peter Parker. And I think with Brand New Day, it's just, sorry about that, I just cut out for a second. But as I was saying, like, I think in Brand New Day, it's just like such a great way of showing that loneliness, and it's such a great way of showing how getting out of that lonely rut can be more beneficial. You know, he wasn't able to accomplish everything until he learned from everybody around him. He wasn't able to break through to Jean until he was able to take the lessons that he learned from his Aunt May, right? You know, he wasn't able to evolve as both Spider-Man and Peter Parker until he took the lessons from Bruce Banner, you know. And he wouldn't be able to be in that situation to, you know, at least attempt to beat the Hulk if it wasn't for him reaching out to Bruce Banner, right? If it wasn't for him getting his help from Frank Castle, right? You know, who was asked to help by MJ. So it's like, it does a great way in the story of not only showing how like crushing that loneliness can be, but how persevering through it is ultimately for the better. Thank you guys for listening or watching. You know, I've got a couple other videos I want to do about Spider-Man. Honestly, I've got a couple other videos in general that I want to do. I wanted to do one about Supergirl. I don't know why I never like did it. Like, it took me a while to get my thoughts. It's not gonna be like a negative review. I don't do negative reviews here. And I don't think there's a point. I feel like there's a million negative reviews online. You know, if you want to hear one, like, go to one of the other people that do it, not me. But yeah, thank you guys for listening or watching, however you guys like to take this in, and I will see y'all later. Peace out.